Welcome back to our exploration of Genesis, moving forward in our Bible summary series. Today, we reach one of the most profound and challenging chapters in the Bible, Genesis 22. This chapter tells the story of God testing Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. It is a story of faith, obedience, and God's ultimate provision. Let's dive in. Genesis 22 begins with God calling out to Abraham. Without hesitation, Abraham responds, "Here I am." God then gives a command that must have pierced Abraham's heart. "Take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." This was no ordinary test. Isaac was not just Abraham's son, he was the child of promise, the one through whom God had promised to fulfill his covenant. Yet Abraham responds without argument or delay. His obedience is immediate, showing a remarkable level of faith and trust in God. Early the next morning, Abraham sets out on the journey to Moriah. The text tells us that they traveled for 3 days, a long journey filled with silent tension and unspoken questions. Yet Abraham remains steadfast. Isaac, carrying the wood, asks a question that must have weighed heavily on Abraham's heart. "Father, where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replies, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." This response reveals Abraham's deep trust in God's provision, even in the face of unimaginable circumstances. At the top of the mountain, Abraham builds an altar, arranges the wood, and binds Isaac. With trembling hands, he lays his son on the altar. This moment captures the depth of Abraham's faith and obedience. Despite the emotional turmoil he must have felt, he chooses to trust in God's plan. Just as Abraham is about to take the knife, an angel of the Lord calls out from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." Abraham stops immediately, responding once more, "Here I am." The angel tells him, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." At that moment, Abraham looks up and sees a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. He takes the ram and offers it as a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham names the place, "The Lord will provide," or in Hebrew, Yahweh Yireh, signifying that God sees and provides for his people. This act of God's provision not only spared Isaac's life, but also served as a powerful symbol of God's faithfulness. Just as Abraham trusted God to provide, God demonstrated that he will always fulfill his promises and make a way, even when the situation seems impossible. After the sacrifice, the angel of the Lord calls out to Abraham a second time, reaffirming God's covenant with him. God says, "Because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me." God's promise is renewed and even expanded. Abraham's willingness to obey, even at great personal cost, shows his unwavering faith. This act solidified his role as the father of faith, and God's reaffirmation underscored his plan to bring blessings to all nations through Abraham's lineage. Genesis 22 is not just a story of faith, it is also a profound foreshadowing. The willingness of Abraham to offer his only son prefigures God's ultimate act of love, offering his only son, Jesus Christ, as a sacrifice for the sins of the world. Just as God provided a ram to take Isaac's place, he provided Jesus to take our place, bringing salvation to all who believe. This chapter reveals the depth of God's provision and love, showing us that his plans are far greater than we can comprehend. Through Abraham's faith, we see a picture of ultimate trust and obedience, and through God's provision, we see a promise of redemption. Genesis 22 is a chapter that challenges us to consider what true faith looks like. Abraham's obedience and trust in God, even in the face of losing what he held most dear, sets a powerful example for all believers. It also points us to God's unfathomable love, as he provided a way for Abraham and ultimately for all of humanity through Jesus. God's faithfulness is unwavering, and his provision is perfect. When we face situations that test our faith, may we remember that God always sees and provides, just as he did on Mount Moriah. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of Genesis 22. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth biblical studies. Until next time, may your faith be strengthened, and may you always trust in God's perfect provision. See you in the next chapter.